I thought I was the luckiest woman alive when the doctor told me I could go home 24 hours early from my appendix surgery. Derek had no idea I was coming back today instead of tomorrow. After 7 years of marriage, I wanted to surprise my construction company owner husband with my quick recovery. I climbed our wooden staircase in our suburban Chicago home, hearing strange sounds from our master bedroom. My heart raced with anticipation, thinking Derek might be watching television. But when I quietly opened the door, I saw my 30-year-old husband tangled in passionate embrace with my 26-year-old sister, Jessica. Instead of screaming or crying, something strange happened. A cold calm washed over me, and I smiled. I closed the door silently and walked away without saying a single word. Standing in our hallway, my mind became crystal clear in ways I had never experienced before. The shock should have destroyed me, but instead, it felt like awakening from a deep sleep. My nursing training kicked in, and I approached this situation like a medical emergency requiring systematic action rather than emotional reaction. I moved quietly to our guest bedroom where I kept a small suitcase for work trips. My hands remained steady as I packed essential clothing, toiletries, and medications. Every movement felt calculated and purposeful. The sounds from upstairs continued, but they seemed distant now, like background noise from a television drama that no longer concerned me. Derek's home office sat adjacent to our kitchen, and I knew exactly where he kept our important documents. His filing cabinet contained our joint bank statements, insurance policies, mortgage papers, and business contracts for his construction company. I photographed each document with my phone, methodically capturing every detail. The financial statements revealed patterns I had never noticed before. During the past 6 months while I worked double shifts at Children's Memorial Hospital to save money for our planned trip to Europe, Derek had been making unusual withdrawals from our joint savings account. $500 here, $800 there, always in cash. The amount seemed random until I added them together. Nearly $4,000 had vanished from our shared future. Jessica's designer purse sat carelessly on our living room coffee table, and I examined its contents with the same clinical detachment. Restaurant receipts from upscale establishments I had never visited littered the bottom. Morton's Steakhouse Gibson's Bar and Steakhouse Alinea. Each receipt showed meals for two with wine bottles costing more than my weekly grocery budget. The dates corresponded perfectly with nights Derek claimed he was working late on construction projects. A small velvet jewelry box tucked inside her purse contained diamond earrings I had never seen before. The receipt from Tiffany & Company showed Derek's signature and a purchase date from 3 weeks ago, the same day he told me we needed to postpone our vacation because of business expenses. But the discovery that made my blood turn to ice came from our master bathroom. Hidden behind extra toilet paper rolls, I found a pregnancy test wrapper. The plastic indicator window clearly showed 2 pink lines. Positive. My sister was not just having an affair with my husband, she was carrying his child. The timeline suddenly became horrifyingly clear. Jessica had moved to Chicago 4 months ago, claiming she needed a fresh start after losing her marketing job in Denver. She had been staying in various hotels and short-term rentals, supposedly job hunting. Derek had been unusually supportive of helping his sister-in-law, offering to cover her expenses until she got back on her feet. Now I understood why Derek had been working such long hours, why he came home exhausted and distant, why he had lost interest in our intimacy. He had been building a completely different life with my sister, planning for a future that included their baby, while I remained completely oblivious. I took photographs of everything: the receipts, the jewelry, the pregnancy test, the bank statements showing his cash withdrawals. My phone captured hundreds of images that would serve as evidence of their elaborate deception. The betrayal was not spontaneous passion. It was calculated, planned, and financed with our marital assets. Standing in our kitchen looking around the home we had built together, I felt something shift inside my chest. The woman who had climbed those stairs an hour ago no longer existed. In her place stood someone I had never met before. Someone who would not cry, would not beg, would not accept this betrayal quietly. Derek's laughter echoed from upstairs, followed by Jessica's voice saying something I could not distinguish. They sounded happy, carefree, unaware that their secret world was about to crumble. But I would not confront them now. Not when emotions could cloud my judgment. Not when they held all the advantages of surprise and preparation. Instead, I gathered my belongings, locked our front door behind me, and drove away from the life I thought I knew. My phone showed 17 missed calls from the hospital checking on my post-surgical recovery. But I felt healthier and stronger than I had in months. Surgery had removed my infected appendix. Now it was time to remove the infected parts of my marriage. The Marriott Hotel across town became my temporary command center. I paid cash for a week-long stay, avoiding any credit card transactions Derek could track. The business suite provided everything I needed: high-speed internet, a printer, and complete privacy to plan my next moves. Madison Cooper had been my closest friend since nursing school at Northwestern University. Now a successful divorce attorney with her own practice in downtown Chicago, she answered my call on the second ring despite the late hour. "Carly, you sound different. What happened with your surgery?" Her concern was immediate and genuine. "The surgery went perfectly, but I discovered something that requires your professional expertise." I kept my voice steady and clinical. "Derek is having an affair with Jessica. I found evidence of financial infidelity as well. I need to understand my legal options before I take any action." Madison's tone shifted instantly to lawyer mode. "Do not go back to that house tonight. Do not confront either of them. Document everything you found, but do not remove any physical evidence that could be considered theft. Can you meet me tomorrow morning at 8? "I can meet you anytime. I have detailed photographs of financial documents, personal items, and proof of the affair. There are also complications I need to discuss in person." "Carly, I need you to listen carefully. In Illinois, adultery can affect property division and alimony determinations. If Derek has been using marital assets to finance this affair that constitutes economic misconduct, we can use this to protect your interests, but timing is crucial." Her words provided the first comfort I had felt since discovering the betrayal. Madison understood the legal battlefield I was entering, and she would help me navigate it strategically rather than emotionally. After ending our call, I spent the night examining Derek's business finances through our shared online banking access. His construction company, D&M Enterprises, maintained multiple accounts that I had never reviewed carefully before. Derek always handled business matters while I focused on my nursing career and our household management. The deeper I dug into his financial records, the more disturbing patterns emerged. His business checking account showed regular deposits from client advance payments, but corresponding withdrawals did not match typical business expenses. Instead of paying suppliers and subcontractors, Derek had been transferring large sums to a personal account I had never seen before. Cross-referencing these transfers with our joint account withdrawals revealed a systematic scheme. Derek was moving money from client payments into his secret account, then withdrawing cash to fund his affair with Jessica. The amounts totaled more than $40,000 over the past 6 months. But the most shocking discovery came from examining the recipients of electronic transfers. Jessica had been receiving monthly payments of $1,500 directly from Derek's business account. These payments began exactly 4 months ago, the same week she moved to Chicago. Derek had not been helping his struggling sister-in-law out of family loyalty. He had been paying her to maintain their affair. The hotel room felt smaller as the magnitude of Derek's deception became clear. This was not a spontaneous romance that had gotten out of control. It was a calculated plan involving financial fraud, systematic lying, and the deliberate destruction of our marriage. Derek had been building an entirely different life while maintaining the facade of our relationship. My phone buzzed with text messages from Derek. "Missing you, baby. Cannot wait for you to come home tomorrow. Jessica stopped by to check on the house while you were away. She says hi and hopes you are feeling better." The casual mention of Jessica's presence in our home while I was recovering from surgery felt like another slap. He was not even trying to hide her access to our private space. In his mind, I was still the naive wife who trusted him completely. I typed back, feeling much better. Madison is taking great care of me. We'll be home soon. Let him think I was safely occupied with my friend while he continued his affair. Let him believe his secret was still safe. Every additional hour he spent in that delusion would give me more time to prepare for the confrontation that was coming. Room service delivered coffee and sandwiches that I barely touched. My appetite had vanished, replaced by a burning focus that felt almost supernatural. The betrayed wife was gone. In her place sat a strategist who would dismantle Derek's deception piece by piece. Tomorrow, Madison would begin the legal process that would protect my interests. But tonight, I would continue gathering evidence that would expose every lie Derek had told and every dollar he had stolen. By the time I was finished, his carefully constructed double life would collapse under the weight of his own crimes. The pregnancy test image glowed on my phone screen as I reviewed the photographs I had taken. Derek and Jessica had created a child together while I worked extra shifts to build our future, but they had made one crucial mistake. They had underestimated the woman they chose to betray. Madison's law office occupied the 32nd floor of a gleaming downtown skyscraper with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Lake Michigan. She reviewed my evidence with the methodical precision that had made her one of Chicago's most respected divorce attorneys. This is not just adultery, Carly. This is systematic financial fraud. She spread the printed photographs across her mahogany conference table. Derek has been stealing from his construction clients and using marital assets to finance his affair. We are looking at both civil and potentially criminal violations. The legal terminology felt surreal, like discussing someone else's life rather than my own. But Madison's expertise provided the roadmap I needed to navigate this nightmare strategically. I want to hire a private investigator, I told her. If Derek is capable of this level of deception, I need to know everything about what he has been doing. Madison nodded approvingly. Thomas Reynolds is the best in the city. Former FBI specializes in financial crimes and marital investigations. He can document their activities while we prepare the legal strategy. Returning to work at Children's Memorial Hospital felt like entering a different world. My colleagues welcomed me back with genuine warmth, asking about my recovery and offering to cover my heavier patient assignments. The pediatric intensive care unit demanded complete focus, and caring for sick children provided a healing distraction from my personal chaos. Dr. Sarah Mitchell, our head nurse and my mentor for 5 years, pulled me aside during my lunch break. You seem different today, more focused, but also distant. Are you sure you are ready to be back so soon after surgery? The surgery was minor compared to other challenges I am facing right now, I admitted carefully. But being here with these families reminds me what really matters. Children who fight for their lives every day put everything else in perspective. Derek called 3 times during my shift, each conversation a masterpiece of casual deception. He asked about my pain levels, reminded me to take my medications, and expressed concern about my early return to work. His voice carried the same loving tone that had comforted me through 7 years of marriage. Jessica has been such a help while you were in the hospital, he mentioned during our evening call. She cleaned the house, did some grocery shopping, even cooked dinner for me last night. We are so lucky to have family who cares. The casual mention of Jessica's domestic activities in our home while I was recovering made my skin crawl. She had been playing house with my husband, sleeping in our bed, cooking in our kitchen, living the life that belonged to me. That was very thoughtful of her, I replied evenly. I should call and thank her for taking such good care of you. Oh, she went back to Denver for a few days to handle some business with her former employer. Something about final paperwork and collecting her last paycheck. She will be back next week. Another lie delivered with practiced smoothness. If Jessica was pregnant with Derek's child, she was certainly not traveling out of state for employment paperwork. More likely, she was visiting a doctor or making arrangements related to the pregnancy. Thomas Reynolds looked exactly like the former FBI agent Madison had described, tall, silver-haired with sharp eyes that seemed to catalog every detail of our meeting. His investigation firm occupied a modest office in Lincoln Park, but his credentials and client testimonials were impressive. "I need to understand the full scope of your husband's activities," he explained as we reviewed my evidence. "Financial fraud often indicates other deceptive behaviors. If he is stealing from clients and lying to you, there may be additional violations we have not discovered yet." Thomas outlined his surveillance plan with military precision. He would monitor Derek's daily activities, identify his associates, trace his financial transactions, and document his relationship with Jessica. Within 72 hours, he would provide a comprehensive report on Derek's true activities. "One thing I need to warn you about," Thomas said as our meeting concluded. "In cases like this, the betrayal is usually deeper than the initial discovery suggests. People who are capable of systematic deception rarely limit themselves to a single victim or a single crime. Prepare yourself for the possibility that what you have found is just the beginning." His words proved prophetic sooner than I expected. That evening, while reviewing Derek's business website and social media accounts, I discovered photographs from a company Christmas party 6 months ago. Derek posed with his business partner, Marcus Williams, and several subcontractors, everyone smiling and celebrating a successful year. But in the background of one photograph, I spotted Jessica. She was not supposed to have moved to Chicago until 4 months ago, yet there she was at Derek's company party in December. She wore a red cocktail dress I had never seen and stood close to a man I did not recognize. Cross-referencing the photo with Derek's business records revealed something that made my blood run cold. Marcus Williams was not just Derek's business partner. He was also his closest friend since college, the best man at our wedding, and a frequent dinner guest in our home. Marcus was married to Angela, a quiet accountant, who often accompanied him to our social gatherings. If Jessica had been in Chicago 6 months ago, attending Derek's business functions and socializing with his associates, then her sudden arrival 4 months ago was another carefully constructed lie. She had been planning this affair much longer than I had realized. But the man standing next to Jessica in the photograph was not Derek. It was Marcus Williams, Derek's best friend and business partner. And the way they stood together, his hand resting on her lower back, suggested a level of intimacy that went far beyond casual acquaintance. The pregnancy test I had found suddenly took on a new significance. If Jessica was involved with both Derek and Marcus, the paternity of her child was not as clear as I had assumed. She was not just destroying my marriage. She was potentially destroying Marcus and Angela's relationship as well. The scope of Jessica's deception was expanding beyond anything I could have imagined. She had not moved to Chicago for a fresh start after losing her job. She had orchestrated an elaborate scheme to infiltrate our social circle, seduce multiple men, and manipulate everyone around her for reasons I was only beginning to understand. My phone buzzed with a text message from Derek. "Cannot wait to hold you again tomorrow night. Been so lonely without you here." The irony of his message sent while he was undoubtedly planning another evening with Jessica would have been laughable if it were not so devastating. But now I wondered if Derek was the only man receiving such messages, or if Jessica was maintaining similar communications with Marcus as well. Tomorrow, Thomas would begin his surveillance and provide the answers I needed. But tonight, I sat in my hotel room staring at photographs that suggested a conspiracy far more complex than a simple affair. Jessica had not just betrayed me. She had potentially betrayed multiple families, and I was determined to expose every lie she had told. The woman who had climbed those stairs 3 days ago could never have imagined the depth of deception she was about to uncover. But the woman sitting in this hotel room was ready for whatever truths Thomas's investigation would reveal, no matter how devastating those truths might be. Thomas's first surveillance report arrived via encrypted email at 6 in the morning, accompanied by high-resolution photographs that shattered any remaining illusions about the scope of Jessica's deception. The images showed Jessica leaving Marcus Williams' downtown condo at 7:30 the previous evening, followed by Marcus himself 15 minutes later. They met Derek at an upscale restaurant in River North, where the three of them shared dinner and wine like old friends. But the body language captured in Thomas's telephoto shots told a different story. Jessica sat between both men, her hand alternately touching Derek's arm and Marcus's shoulder. She leaned close to whisper in each man's ear, smiled seductively at both, and exhibited the confident behavior of someone who controlled the entire situation. Derek and Marcus seemed unaware of each other's intimate relationship with Jessica, each believing he was her only romantic interest. "Your sister-in-law is running a sophisticated manipulation scheme," Thomas explained during our emergency morning meeting. "She maintains separate relationships with both men, scheduling her time to avoid detection. Derek believes Marcus is simply a mutual friend. Marcus appears equally unaware of Derek's involvement." The financial investigation revealed even more disturbing patterns. Jessica had been receiving money from both men, the monthly $1,500 transfers from Derek's business account, plus additional payments from Marcus's personal checking account. She had also opened credit cards in both men's names, accumulating thousands of dollars in charges for clothing, jewelry, and travel expenses. "But there is something else." Thomas continued, his expression growing darker. "Marcus's wife, Angela, has been conducting her own investigation. She hired a different private detective 2 weeks ago to investigate her husband's suspicious behavior. She knows about the affair, but she does not know Jessica is also involved with Derek." The web of deception was expanding in directions I could never have predicted. Angela Williams, the quiet accountant I had known for years, was fighting the same battle I was trying to save her marriage from Jessica's manipulation. But neither of us had understood the full scope of what we were facing. "There is more," Thomas said, sliding additional photographs across his desk. "Jessica is also maintaining a relationship with a third man in Minneapolis. She travels there twice monthly, ostensibly visiting friends, but she is actually living with someone named David Chen, who believes she is his exclusive girlfriend." The revelation hit me like physical blow. Jessica was not just destroying 2 marriages in Chicago. She was potentially manipulating multiple victims across different cities, creating elaborate lies to support her deception. The pregnancy could belong to any of these men, and she was likely planning to extract money and support from whoever offered the most advantages. "I want to meet Angela Williams," I decided immediately. "She deserves to know what Jessica is doing to all of us. Together, we can expose this entire scheme." Thomas arranged the meeting at a neutral location, a coffee shop in Lincoln Park, where Angela and I could speak privately. I had interacted with her dozens of times at social gatherings, but we had never developed a close friendship. She was quiet, studious, and seemed content to let Marcus dominate their conversations. But the woman who met me that afternoon bore little resemblance to the passive wife I remembered. Angela Williams had transformed into a focused investigator who had been systematically documenting her husband's betrayal for weeks. I knew something was wrong when Marcus started working late 3 nights per week. She explained, spreading her own collection of evidence across our small table. He claimed Derek needed help with major projects, but when I called Derek's office to invite you both for dinner, his secretary said Derek had left early. Angela's financial analysis was thorough and devastating. As a certified public accountant, she had access to sophisticated tools for tracking money movements and identifying suspicious transactions. Her investigation had uncovered the same patterns I had discovered: systematic theft from business accounts to finance personal expenses. "Marcus has stolen over $60,000 from their construction company," she revealed. "He transferred the money to personal accounts, then converted it to cash and gift cards to avoid leaving digital trails. But I photograph everything he brings into our house." Her phone contained hundreds of images documenting Marcus's gifts to Jessica designer handbags, expensive jewelry, electronics, and clothing that cost more than most families spent in months. She had also tracked his mileage and correlated it with Jessica's social media posts, proving they spent considerable time together. "The woman who is destroying our marriages is not just unfaithful," Angela said with quiet determination. "She is a professional con artist who targets successful men and manipulates them into stealing from their own businesses to support her lifestyle. Together, we developed a plan that would expose Jessica's entire operation while protecting our legal interests. Angela would continue monitoring Marcus's financial activities while I documented Derek's transactions. Thomas would maintain surveillance on Jessica's movements and communications. When we had enough evidence to guarantee convictions for fraud and theft, we would coordinate simultaneous confrontations that would prevent any of them from escaping accountability. "There is one more thing," Angela said as our meeting concluded. "I found evidence that Jessica has done this before. Court records from Colorado show she was involved in a similar scheme 3 years ago targeting married men and extracting money through fraudulent relationships. The charges were dropped when she disappeared, but the pattern is identical." The revelation that Jessica was a repeat offender with a history of targeting marriages added a criminal dimension to her current activities. She had not stumbled into these affairs accidentally. She had selected Derek Marcus and potentially others as marks in a calculated scheme to steal money and destroy families. Driving back to my hotel, I felt the pieces of a massive puzzle falling into place. Jessica's sudden move to Chicago, her convenient financial struggles, her access to our home and social circle, even her pregnancy, were all calculated moves in a long-term con game. She had studied our marriages, identified weaknesses, and exploited them with professional precision. But she had made one crucial mistake. She had targeted 2 women who refused to be victims quietly. Angela's accounting skills and my nursing training in systematic problem solving made us formidable opponents. Together, we would dismantle her operation and ensure that she faced consequences for every crime she had committed. The betrayed wives were gone, replaced by investigators who would expose every lie and recover every stolen dollar. Jessica's carefully constructed scheme was about to collapse under the weight of evidence she never saw coming. The dinner party I organized for Saturday evening would appear completely innocent to everyone involved. Just a casual gathering of friends to celebrate my recovery from surgery, hosted at Derek and my home, with plenty of advance notice for everyone to attend. Derek enthusiastically embraced the idea when I suggested it during our Thursday evening phone call. "That sounds perfect, baby. It will be great to have everyone together again. Should I invite Marcus and Angela? We have not seen them socially in weeks." "Absolutely. And Jessica should join us too, since she has been so helpful while I was recovering. Is she back from Denver yet?" "She got back yesterday. I'm sure she would love to come. She's been asking about you, constantly worried about your recovery." The casual lies continued to flow from Derek's mouth with practiced ease, but each deception he uttered was being recorded on my phone and documented for legal purposes. Thomas had installed sophisticated surveillance equipment in our house, while Derek was at work capturing every conversation and movement for evidence. Angela and I coordinated our preparations with military precision. She would arrive early under the pretense of helping with dinner preparations, bringing her laptop containing financial evidence and documentation of Marcus's theft. I would prepare a presentation that revealed Derek's embezzlement and Jessica's manipulation scheme. But the most crucial element of our plan involved Thomas's contact at the FBI Financial Crimes Unit. Agent Patricia Moore had reviewed our evidence and confirmed that Derek and Marcus's activities constituted federal wire fraud and money laundering. She would be standing by with arrest warrants ready to take action once we had documented their crimes on video. Saturday morning arrived with unseasonably warm October weather, perfect for the outdoor portions of our gathering. I spent the day preparing Derek's favorite meal, grilled steaks, roasted vegetables, and homemade apple pie. The domestic normalcy felt surreal, like playing a role in a theater production where I was the only person who knew how the story would end. Derek returned home at 5 o'clock, showered and changed into the navy blue shirt I had always told him looked handsome. He seemed genuinely excited about the evening, discussing our guests and asking if I needed help with any final preparations. "You seem different since you got home," he observed as I arranged flowers on our dining room table. "More energetic, more focused. I guess the surgery really helped you feel better." "I feel like a completely new person," I replied honestly. "Like I have been given a fresh perspective on everything that matters in life." Jessica arrived precisely at 6:30, looking radiant in a flowing dress that cleverly concealed her early pregnancy. She embraced me warmly, expressing concern about my health and praising Derek for taking such good care of me during my hospital stay. "You are so lucky to have a husband who loves you so much," she said with apparent sincerity. "Derek has been worried sick about you. He barely slept while you were in the hospital." The performance was flawless, delivered with genuine emotion that would have convinced anyone who did not know the truth. Jessica had perfected the art of manipulation, saying exactly what people wanted to hear while pursuing her own agenda behind their backs. Marcus and Angela arrived 15 minutes later, completing our intimate gathering. Marcus seemed slightly nervous, checking his phone frequently and avoiding extended eye contact with Jessica. Angela appeared perfectly calm, chatting pleasantly about work and commenting on the delicious aromas coming from our kitchen. Dinner conversation flowed naturally through safe topics: work projects, upcoming holidays, local news, and mutual friends. Derek dominated the discussion with stories about recent construction jobs, while Marcus contributed details about their business expansion plans. Jessica asked thoughtful questions and offered encouraging comments that made both men seem more animated and confident. But I noticed subtle signs of the complex dynamics playing out beneath the surface pleasantries. Jessica's foot briefly touched Derek's under the table, while her eyes lingered meaningfully on Marcus when she thought no one was watching. Derek and Marcus discussed their business partnership with the easy familiarity of long friendship, unaware that they were both being manipulated by the same woman. After dinner, I suggested we move to the living room for coffee and dessert. But first, I announced cheerfully, I have a little presentation to share with everyone. Something I discovered while I was recovering that I think you will all find very interesting. I connected my laptop to our large screen television, displaying the first slide of what appeared to be a casual photo slideshow. I have been organizing our digital photos and came across some wonderful memories I wanted to share. The first images were innocent enough pictures from recent social gatherings, work events, and family celebrations. Everyone smiled and commented on the good times we had shared together, but gradually the photographs became more specific and revealing. Here's an interesting one from Derek's company Christmas party last December. I said, displaying the image where Jessica appeared in the background with Marcus. I had forgotten Jessica visited Chicago so early. Derek, I thought you said she only moved here 4 months ago. Derek's face flushed slightly, but he recovered quickly. Oh, that was just a brief visit. She came for the holidays, but went back to Denver afterward. And here she is with Marcus at what appears to be a very friendly conversation. I continued zooming in on their intimate body language. You two certainly seemed to hit it off right away. Angela leaned forward, studying the image with newfound interest. Marcus shifted uncomfortably in his chair while Jessica maintained her composed smile, despite the growing tension in the room. Actually, Angela said quietly, I have some photos I think everyone might find interesting as well. She opened her own laptop and displayed a series of images showing Marcus and Jessica together at various locations around Chicago restaurants, hotels, shopping centers, and even Marcus's downtown condo building. The timestamps proved these encounters had been occurring for months. Marcus, Angela said with devastating calm, would you like to explain to Derek why you have been spending so much time with his sister-in-law? The room fell into absolute silence. Derek stared at the photographs with growing confusion and horror, while Marcus appeared frozen in panic. Jessica's composed facade finally began to crack as she realized her carefully constructed deception was collapsing in real time. I can explain, Marcus stammered, but Derek interrupted him with a voice filled with rage. Explain what? That you have been sleeping with my wife's sister, that you have been lying to my face for months while betraying our friendship. Derek, please listen, Jessica interjected, but I silenced her with a gesture. Actually, Jessica, there is much more to explain, I said, advancing to the next slide. Like this pregnancy test I found in our bathroom or these financial records showing Derek has been giving you $1,500 per month, or these credit cards you opened in both Derek and Marcus's names. The evidence continued mounting with each slide bank statements, receipts, surveillance photographs, and documented proof of systematic fraud and manipulation. Derek and Marcus watched in stunned silence as their individual betrayals were revealed to be part of a larger scheme that had exploited them both. "You planned all of this," Derek whispered, staring at Jessica with the expression of a man whose entire world had just crumbled. "Everything about us, everything you said, you felt it was all a lie. Both of you have been stealing money from your business to support Jessica's lifestyle," Angela added, displaying her financial analysis. "Over $100,000 in client funds that were supposed to pay for construction materials and worker salaries." The doorbell rang at exactly 9 o'clock, interrupting the emotional chaos that had erupted in our living room. Thomas entered with Agent Patricia Moore and 2 other FBI agents, their badges and arrest warrants ready. "Derek Williams and Marcus Williams, you are under arrest for federal wire fraud and money laundering," Agent Moore announced professionally. "Jessica Chen, you are under arrest for conspiracy to commit fraud and grand theft." As the handcuffs were applied and Miranda rights were read, our elegant dinner party transformed into a crime scene that would destroy 3 lives forever. Derek looked at me with desperate confusion, finally understanding that his betrayed wife had orchestrated his downfall with the same systematic precision he had used to plan his affair. "How did you know?" he asked as Agent Moore led him toward our front door. "Because I finally saw you clearly," I replied, and I decided to stop being a victim. The weeks following the arrests became a whirlwind of legal proceedings, media attention, and emotional reckoning that tested every relationship in our social circle. Derek, Marcus, and Jessica each faced multiple federal charges that could result in decades of imprisonment, while the construction company they had systematically looted collapsed under the weight of client lawsuits and criminal investigations. Madison's legal strategy proved brilliantly effective in protecting my interests throughout the divorce proceedings. Illinois law allowed her to seek significant compensation for Derek's economic misconduct, including his theft of marital assets and fraudulent use of our joint accounts to finance his affair. The evidence Thomas had gathered made Derek's guilt undeniable, forcing his attorney to negotiate a settlement rather than risk a trial. Derek's criminal defense lawyer wants to discuss a plea bargain, Madison informed me during our Tuesday morning meeting. He is willing to surrender all claims to marital property in exchange for your cooperation in his sentencing hearing. Essentially, he wants you to testify that he was manipulated by Jessica, rather than acting as a willing participant in her scheme. The irony of Derek seeking my help after destroying our marriage was almost laughable. But Madison explained the strategic advantages of accepting his proposal. I would receive full ownership of our house, his legitimate business assets, and priority claims on any money recovered from the criminal investigation. "What about Jessica's pregnancy?" I asked, though I dreaded learning the answer. Paternity testing revealed the biological father is neither Derek nor Marcus, but the 3rd man she was seeing in Minneapolis. She had been manipulating all 3 relationships simultaneously, planning to extract child support from whichever victim offered the most financial advantages. The revelation that Jessica's pregnancy was part of an even larger con game provided a disturbing glimpse into the depth of her deception. She had not simply stumbled into multiple affairs. She was a professional predator who targeted successful men across different cities, manipulating their emotions and stealing their money with calculated precision. Angela's situation proved more complicated than mine. Marcus had genuinely believed himself in love with Jessica, even going so far as to tell Angela he wanted a divorce so he could be with his true soulmate. His emotional investment in the relationship made his crime seem more voluntary than Derek's, resulting in harsher charges and a less favorable plea agreement. Marcus is facing 8 to 12 years in federal prison, Angela told me during one of our weekly coffee meetings. His lawyer says cooperation with prosecutors might reduce his sentence, but the financial damage to our marriage is irreversible. We have lost everything: our house, our savings, our business, even our reputation in the community. Despite the devastating impact on her personal life, Angela had emerged from the crisis as a stronger and more independent woman. She accepted a senior position with a major accounting firm filed for divorce and began rebuilding her life with impressive determination. "I wasted 15 years trying to be the perfect wife to a man who was willing to steal from his clients to impress a con artist," she reflected. "The betrayal was devastating, but it freed me from a marriage where I was never valued or respected." The construction company clients who had lost money in Derek and Marcus's embezzlement scheme filed a class action lawsuit seeking damages for delayed projects, inferior materials, and breach of contract. Their attorney contacted me about Derek's personal assets, hoping to recover funds through the divorce settlement. "Your cooperation could help these families recover some of their losses," the attorney explained. "Derek and Marcus used money intended for their construction projects to finance Jessica's luxury lifestyle, while these clients waited months for work that was never completed properly." Learning about the human cost of Derek's crimes added another layer of moral complexity to an already devastating situation. Hard-working families had trusted Derek's company to renovate their homes or build their businesses, only to be victimized by his greed and poor judgment. Their financial losses were not abstract numbers, but real hardships that would affect their lives for years. Jessica's criminal trial provided the most dramatic revelations about the scope of her operation. Federal prosecutors presented evidence that she had been running similar schemes in Colorado, Minnesota, and Texas over the past 5 years, targeting dozens of married men and extracting hundreds of thousands of dollars through fraudulent relationships. She specifically researched her victims through social media and professional networks, identifying successful men in stable marriages who might be vulnerable to attention from an attractive younger woman. The prosecutor explained during opening arguments. She created elaborate fictional backgrounds, forged employment records, and even staged family emergencies to manipulate their emotions and access their finances. Court testimony revealed that Jessica had maintained detailed files on each victim, including their financial information, marital problems, personal interests, and psychological profiles. She approached each relationship like a business transaction, calculating the optimal strategy to extract maximum financial benefit while avoiding detection. The pregnancy that had initially shocked me proved to be another manipulation tactic she had used with previous victims. She would claim to be carrying their child, then demand money for medical expenses, nursery preparations, and living costs before disappearing once she had extracted sufficient funds. Derek's sentencing hearing provided my opportunity to speak directly about the impact of his betrayal. Madison had prepared a victim impact statement that balanced my personal pain with the broader consequences of his criminal behavior. "Derek did not just destroy our marriage," I testified before the federal judge. "He violated the trust of every client who hired his company, every friend who believed in his character, and every family member who thought they knew the man he really was. His crimes were not crimes of passion, but calculated decisions to value his immediate gratification over the welfare of everyone who depended on him." The judge sentenced Derek to 4 years in federal prison, followed by 3 years of supervised probation and full restitution to his victims. Marcus received 6 years due to his larger role in the embezzlement scheme and his continued insistence that Jessica had genuinely loved him. Jessica was sentenced to 8 years for conspiracy fraud and racketeering related to her multi-state operation. Standing outside the federal courthouse after Derek's sentencing, I felt a complex mixture of relief, sadness, and something approaching peace. Justice had been served, but the cost in human suffering was enormous. 3 families had been destroyed, dozens of clients had suffered financial losses, and multiple communities had been betrayed by people they had trusted. But I had also discovered strength I never knew I possessed. The betrayed wife who had climbed those stairs 6 months ago could never have imagined orchestrating the investigation that brought these criminals to justice. In fighting for my own rights, I had protected other victims and prevented Jessica from destroying additional families. The woman walking away from that courthouse was someone entirely new, stronger, wiser, and determined to build a life based on truth rather than the comfortable lies that had defined my marriage to Derek. 18 months after discovering Derek's betrayal, I stood before 200 guests at the Chicago Children's Hospital annual fundraising gala, accepting the Humanitarian Service Award for founding Hope After Betrayal, a nonprofit organization dedicated to helping women rebuild their lives after financial and emotional abuse. The past year had brought transformations I could never have anticipated during those dark days in the hotel room. Using the settlement money from my divorce, I had established a comprehensive support system that provided legal assistance, financial counseling, and emotional therapy for women whose marriages had been destroyed by criminal behavior. When we discover that someone we trusted has been lying to us, stealing from us, or manipulating us, the natural response is to feel ashamed and powerless. I told the audience my voice carrying across the elegant ballroom with confidence I had never possessed before. But that betrayal can also become the catalyst for discovering strength we never knew existed within ourselves. Hope After Betrayal had helped 87 women navigate divorce proceedings, complicated by financial crimes, recovered over $600,000 in stolen assets, and provided counseling services that helped families heal from the trauma of discovering their loved ones were not who they claimed to be. Dr. Sarah Mitchell. My former supervisor at Children's Memorial had supported my transition from bedside nursing to nonprofit leadership with enthusiasm and professional guidance. Carly always had the analytical skills and compassion needed to help people solve complex problems. She wrote in her letter of recommendation for the award, but the adversity she faced revealed leadership abilities that have transformed countless lives. My work had attracted attention from law enforcement agencies seeking to understand how financial predators like Jessica target their victims. I consulted with FBI training programs, spoke at legal conferences, and helped develop educational materials that taught people to recognize the warning signs of systematic manipulation. Angela Williams had become my closest collaborator and friend through our shared experience of rebuilding after betrayal. Her accounting expertise and my healthcare background created a powerful combination for investigating financial crimes and supporting other victims. We learned that being naive or trusting does not make us responsible for other people's criminal behavior. Angela reflected during her speech at the gala, but we also learned that we have the power to ensure that our suffering serves a purpose beyond our own healing. The nonprofit work provided meaning and direction that my marriage to Derek had never offered. During our 7 years together, I had focused primarily on supporting his ambitions and maintaining our domestic life, while suppressing my own dreams of returning to school and expanding my career. His betrayal had inadvertently freed me to pursue goals I had abandoned for the sake of our relationship. I completed my Master of Science in Nursing degree through Northwestern University's evening program, specializing in forensic nursing and victim advocacy. The knowledge gained through my own legal battle enhanced my ability to help other women understand their rights and navigate complex court proceedings. The house Derek and I had shared became the headquarters for Hope After Betrayal, with offices for staff members and meeting rooms where support groups gathered weekly. Transforming the space where I had discovered his affair into a center for healing and justice felt like the ultimate reclamation of my power and identity. Thomas Reynolds continued working as our primary investigator, using his FBI training to help clients document financial crimes and gather evidence for legal proceedings. His surveillance techniques had evolved into a systematic methodology for exposing fraud that other organizations began adopting across the country. The most important thing we learned from your case, Thomas explained during our quarterly board meeting, is that these criminals rely on their victims' shame and isolation to avoid accountability. When women work together and share information, these predators lose the advantage of secrecy that makes their schemes possible. Derek's letters from federal prison arrived sporadically, usually around holidays or significant dates from our former life together. His tone had evolved from angry denial to grudging acceptance to something approaching genuine remorse, though I remained skeptical about his capacity for authentic change. "I understand now that Jessica manipulated both of us," he wrote in his most recent letter. "But that does not excuse the choices I made or the pain I caused you. I hope someday you can forgive me not for my sake, but for your own peace of mind." Forgiveness remained a complex process that I approached through counseling and spiritual reflection, rather than emotional impulse. Derek's crimes had caused suffering that extended far beyond our marriage, affecting construction clients, business partners, and family members who had trusted him. My forgiveness, if it came, would need to be earned through genuine accountability and efforts to make amends to all his victims. Jessica's conviction and imprisonment had effectively ended her career as a professional con artist, but her case study became a valuable teaching tool for law enforcement and victim advocacy organizations. The detailed evidence we had gathered provided insight into the sophisticated psychological techniques predators use to manipulate their victims' emotions and override their natural suspicion. Jessica's operation succeeded because she understood what her victims needed emotionally and provided exactly that experience, explained Dr. Patricia Williams, the forensic psychologist who testified during her trial. She made lonely men feel desired, insecure men feel confident and troubled, men feel understood. Her crime was not just theft, but the weaponization of human emotion for financial gain. The children I had cared for during my years as a pediatric nurse continued to inspire my approach to helping adult victims of crime. Those young patients had taught me that healing requires both professional medical treatment and emotional support from people who understand the journey toward recovery. Just like children facing serious illness need both doctors and nurses, women recovering from betrayal need both lawyers and advocates. I explained to social work students during my guest lecture at the University of Chicago, our role is to provide the human connection and practical guidance that helps people navigate systems designed to be intimidating and impersonal. The recognition from my peers in healthcare and victim advocacy felt deeply meaningful, but the most rewarding moments came from individual success stories of women who had rebuilt their lives after devastating betrayals. Maria Rodriguez, whose husband had stolen her immigration documents and savings to support his gambling addiction. Patricia Johnson, whose business partner had embezzled funds from their nonprofit organization. Jennifer Walsh, whose brother had used her identity to obtain credit cards and mortgage loans. Each woman's story was unique, but the process of recovery followed similar patterns: initial shock and disbelief, followed by grief and anger, then gradual acceptance and determination to rebuild. The women who thrived were those who channeled their pain into purpose and used their experience to help others facing similar challenges. Standing at the podium that evening looking out at an audience that included fellow nurses, attorneys, law enforcement officers, and survivors of various crimes, I felt profound gratitude for the unexpected path my life had taken. Derek's betrayal had been devastating, but it had also revealed capabilities and passions I might never have discovered if our marriage had continued its comfortable but unfulfilling trajectory. The question I am asked most frequently, I told the audience as my speech concluded, is whether I would change what happened if I could go back in time and prevent Derek's affair. The honest answer is that I would not change the outcome, only the timeline. I wish I had found the courage to leave that marriage years earlier, when I first began to feel that something fundamental was missing from our relationship. We cannot control other people's choices to betray us, manipulate us, or commit crimes against us. But we can control how we respond to those betrayals. We can choose to remain victims, or we can choose to become advocates for ourselves and others who face similar challenges. The applause that followed felt like validation, not just for my work with Hope After Betrayal, but for the journey of transformation that had brought me to this moment. The frightened woman who had discovered her husband's affair 18 months ago had evolved into someone who could stand confidently before hundreds of people and speak about turning tragedy into purpose. As guests approached me throughout the evening to share their own stories and express support for our organization's mission, I realized that Derek's betrayal had inadvertently given me the greatest gift of my adult life: the opportunity to discover who I really was when I stopped trying to be who I thought other people wanted me to be. The life I was building bore no resemblance to the future I had planned with Derek, but it was infinitely more authentic and meaningful. I was helping other women discover their own strength while continuing to grow and learn in ways that felt genuinely fulfilling rather than merely dutiful. Have you ever experienced a moment when something devastating actually opened doors to a better version of yourself? I would love to hear your stories about finding strength you did not know you had, whether through betrayal, loss, or other unexpected challenges. Please share your experiences in the comments below and let me know how you transform difficult situations into opportunities for growth. If this story resonated with you or helped you feel less alone in your own struggles, please consider liking this video and subscribing to this channel for more stories about resilience, justice, and the power of refusing to remain a victim. Sharing these stories helps other women understand they are not alone and that recovery is possible even after the most devastating betrayals. Thank you for listening to my journey from betrayal to empowerment. Remember that your current struggle may be preparing you for a future you cannot yet imagine, but one that will be stronger and more meaningful than anything you could have planned. Trust yourself, seek help when you need it, and never underestimate your capacity to rebuild and thrive. The woman who climbed those stairs and discovered her husband's betrayal could never have imagined the life that awaited her on the other side of that pain. But every step of the journey, no matter how difficult, led to exactly where I was meant to be.